There is something inside the Great Pyramid that no one has ever seen. Not the king's chamber, not the Grand Gallery, not any of the passages that tomb raiders, caliphs, and dynamite crews have blasted their way into across 12 centuries of forced entry. Something else. A space at least 30 meters long, sealed directly above the Grand Gallery, with no entrance, no corridor, no connection to any known passage. The team that confirmed its existence used subatomic particles to see through 4,500 years of limestone, and they are not allowed to go near it. 3 independent laboratories, 3 different detection technologies, the same result. Published in Nature, peer-reviewed. No team involved has challenged the finding. And then, silence. The researchers who found the void cannot reach it. The government that controls the pyramid has not explained why. And the builders who sealed it appear to have constructed the space and concealed it in a single continuous act, as if it was never meant to be entered. Not in their age, not in ours, not ever. The void is not a theory. It is a measurement. That much is settled. What is not settled, what may never be settled, is why it exists, what it was designed to hold or to hide, and why the most significant structural discovery inside the pyramid in over a century has been allowed to vanish into bureaucratic silence. But before the void, there was the assumption, and the assumption was absolute. The Great Pyramid of Khufu has been entered, catalogued, tunneled through, and stripped more thoroughly than any ancient structure on the planet. Every interior space currently known to archaeology was found the same way, by force. In the 9th century, Caliph al-Ma'mun ordered his workers to crack the northern limestone face using fire and vinegar. They heated the stone, then doused it until it split. For months they hammered inward, block after block, through solid mass, with no map and no certainty they would find anything at all. They did find something. Their tunnel struck a descending corridor the builders had sealed behind granite plugs weighing tons apiece. That intersection was not skill. It was collision. The workers were guessing direction and depth, and they happened to break into a space that led to the rest of the known interior. The Grand Gallery, the King's Chamber, the sarcophagus, all of it followed from one lucky impact. Every discovery after al-Ma'mun relied on the same logic. Howard Weiss brought gunpowder in the 1830s and detonated his way upward into the stress-relieving chambers above the King's Chamber. Belzoni cleared a blocked entrance to the second pyramid by brute excavation. Dixon found sealed shafts by examining a crack in the Queen's Chamber wall and probing with a wire until it passed through into empty space. Tunnel after tunnel, century after century, the interior was mapped by collision. Someone drilled or blasted in a direction, and if they hit empty space, they called it a discovery. If they hit stone, they assumed there was nothing there. Limestone holds heat the way bone holds marrow, slowly, reluctantly, releasing warmth long after the source has gone. Inside the Grand Gallery, the air sits thick and faintly mineral, pressed into stillness by the weight of 2.5 million blocks stacked in silence overhead. The walls narrow upward at a steep corbelled angle, climbing toward a ceiling that has not been open to the sky since the last course was laid. No one, in 1,200 years of exploration, had ever seen through the stone itself. And because every known space had been found by punching through to it, the assumption took hold that there was nothing left to find. The chambers were known, the passages were charted. Textbooks printed cross-sections of the pyramid's interior as though the diagram were complete, a solved building, a mapped monument. What remained was measurement, conservation, and debate about how the thing was built. For over a century, no serious voice in Egyptology asked the question that now seems obvious. What if the spaces we found are only the ones our tunnels happen to hit? What about sealed spaces that connect to nothing? That ceiling above the Grand Gallery is not just a ceiling. Directly above it, separated by meters of solid limestone that no forced passage has ever crossed, sits the void. And for 45 centuries, nothing on Earth could prove it was there. Cosmic rays rain through the atmosphere every second. When they strike the upper atmosphere, they produce subatomic particles called muons, particles that pass through matter the way light passes through glass, slowing in dense stone, passing freely through empty space. The principle is the same as a medical X-ray, but the source is not a machine. The source is the sky itself. Place a detector inside a structure, count what arrives from every angle, and you get a density map of everything above you, without touching a single block. In 2015, an international collaboration called Scan Pyramids installed detection equipment inside the pyramid's known chambers. A Japanese team from Nagoya University deployed one technology. A French laboratory deployed another. A third group used a different detection method entirely. 3 teams, 3 countries, 3 instruments, calibrated independently, collecting data for months, particle by particle, count by count, with no shared analysis until the results were compared. The hum of nothing, the weight of waiting. Inside the Queen's chamber, the detection plate sat in total darkness, recording impacts too small to hear and too fast to see, each one carrying a fragment of information about the density of the stone it had crossed. The skeptics had reason. Muon tomography at this scale was unproven. Critics argued it could not reliably distinguish a single large void from clusters of smaller ones, or from natural density variations in the limestone. Some Egyptologists pointed out that the pyramid's construction is not uniform. Air pockets, rubble fill, and uneven block density could all produce false positives. The Egyptian archaeological establishment watched with open wariness. Physicists, not excavators, not conservators, not anyone with a career invested in the existing model, were about to make claims about the internal anatomy of the most studied monument on Earth. When the data came back from all 3 teams, it showed the same thing. And what it showed had been hidden inside the pyramid for 4,500 years. It was still there. It was enormous, and it had no door. All 3 methods identified the same anomaly, a large void directly above the Grand Gallery, at least 30 meters long, comparable in scale to the gallery itself, not connected to any known corridor, not described in any historical record, not predicted by any archaeological model. Sealed inside the body of the pyramid since the final course of stone was placed, invisible to every expedition and every instrument deployed across 12 centuries of exploration. On the 2nd of November, 2017, the results were published in Nature. The finding was not a preliminary indication. It was a confirmed physical measurement, independently replicated 3 times. The statistical significance was overwhelming. The next step was straightforward. Refine the void's geometry with additional scans. deploy thermal imaging, possibly insert a micro-diameter robotic probe to look inside without disturbing the structure. The technology existed. The proposals were ready. The Egyptian government did not authorize follow-up. No formal rejection was issued. No statement explained the decision. No timeline was offered. The Scan Pyramids team proposed non-invasive extensions, methods designed to avoid any physical contact with the stone. Additional muon scans, thermal cameras, robotic micro-exploration through channels smaller than a finger. Each proposal entered the same silence, and the silence held. Desert air cools unevenly after dark. On the Giza Plateau, heat rises off the limestone in waves that distort the stars above the pyramid's apex, and the stone itself contracts with a sound too low for most ears, felt more in the chest than heard, like the building is exhaling after holding its breath since morning. Former Antiquities Minister Zahi Hawass criticized the project openly. He questioned whether the void was significant. He questioned whether physicists had standing to make structural claims about a pharaonic monument. He suggested the anomaly might be nothing more than a meaningless construction gap. The Scan Pyramids team responded with data, methodology, and peer review. Data does not answer politics. The void remained confirmed. The void remained untouched.
Years passed, not months, years. The most consequential structural discovery inside the Great Pyramid since the 1830s sat in a Nature publication and went nowhere. No committee was formed. No rival team was invited to verify the work. No investigation date was proposed. The researchers who had spent years designing the experiment, installing the equipment, and analyzing millions of particle events were left with a confirmed discovery they could not pursue. The data was complete. The permission was not. They had found the door. They were not allowed to open it. In 2023, the team was granted one concession. They were permitted to insert a tiny endoscopic camera into a different, smaller space. A 9-meter corridor on the pyramid's north face, also detected by muons. The footage showed rough-cut limestone walls and a narrow passage leading nowhere. A 9-meter corridor. The 30-meter void, the actual discovery, remains untouched. 3 independent teams confirmed what is inside. It was published in one of the most respected scientific journals on Earth. And then, nothing. The question is no longer what is in the void. The question is, who gets to decide if we ever find out? The Egyptian government's caution has a basis, and the basis is real. The Great Pyramid is the last surviving wonder of the ancient world. It has stood for 45 centuries. The people responsible for its care carry the knowledge that a single miscalculation could damage something that every civilization before them managed to preserve.
Al-Mamun's tunnel is still there, a 9th-century scar that has never healed. Weiss's gunpowder fractured internal masonry that had survived 4 millennia intact. The terracotta army in China lost its painted pigments within minutes of exposure to air. The history of invasive archaeology is a history of discoveries damaged by the act of discovery. That fear is not irrational. But the Scan Pyramids team was not proposing dynamite. They were not proposing tunnels. They were proposing non-invasive follow-up to a non-invasive discovery. Technologies that do not touch the stone. The government did not distinguish between the two. The void, confirmed, published, unchallenged,
entered a category of knowledge that exists but is not permitted to advance. The Egyptian government would offer one justification for its position, but the most revealing detail was not what they said. It was what they did not say, and what they have not done since. And here, the question shifts. Because the void does not merely sit inside the pyramid as a modern political problem. It sits there as something the original builders placed there deliberately. And the modern silence around it may not be a failure of process. It may be, without anyone intending it, an echo of the original design. The ancient Egyptians built hidden spaces on purpose. This is not mythology. It is documented engineering practice across the Old Kingdom pyramid tradition. False chambers designed to mislead. Blind passages terminating in solid stone. Concealed corridors sealed behind blocks fitted with such precision that the joints are invisible. In some pyramids, entire passage systems were built, sealed, and buried under additional construction, closed forever after the burial ritual. Every void in this structure is a decision.
Stone remembers what paper forgets. 45 centuries of wind have not moved a single interior block. 45 centuries of gravity have not collapsed a single sealed corridor. Whatever purpose this space serves, the structure is still serving it. In darkness, in silence, in a patience no human institution has ever matched. Explanations exist. An internal construction ramp sealed after building was complete. A weight relief feature distributing structural load. Each one accounts for some of the data and none of the design. A ramp should contain rubble, fragments of limestone, traces of labor, the debris of work that served its purpose and was left behind. This space reads as open, clean, intentional. A relief feature should have precedent. Nothing this size exists in any other pyramid. And neither theory explains the one detail that changes everything. This space has no entrance. Not a sealed entrance, not a collapsed entrance, no entrance. It was not closed after construction, it was closed during construction, entombed inside the pyramid's mass before the courses above it were even placed. If the builders designed this space to remain concealed forever, then the muon scan did not discover a lost room. It discovered something that was deliberately kept. The pyramid did not fail to reveal the void. It successfully hid it for 4,500 years from every army, every empire, every caliph with a battering team, every colonel with gunpowder, and every expedition that believed it had mapped the interior completely. Cosmic rays were the first force to breach that concealment. Subatomic particles, born in collisions at the edge of space, registering on a detector plate in Nagoya as proof that something was not there, and that the not there had a shape. The proof is public, the void is not. In the early 1990s, a robotic camera was sent up one of two narrow shafts extending from the Queen's chamber deep into the pyramid's body. At the end of one shaft, the camera found a small limestone slab fitted with two copper fittings, a sealed door. In 2002, a drill punched through. Behind it was a second sealed slab, unfinished, untouched. The shafts have never been fully explored. The pyramid conceals spaces within spaces. It answers questions with more stone. Darkness without origin. Darkness older than Rome, older than Athens, older than Babylon. Air that has not moved since the last block was placed. Pressed into stillness by mass so absolute that the idea of opening feels less like a door and more like a wound. The void, all 30 meters of it, still has no name, no classification, no confirmed purpose. The researchers who proved its existence have moved on to problems they are permitted to solve. No instrument is recording the muon flux through the pyramid. No committee is reviewing access. No camera, no probe, no endoscopy has been authorized. The detection plates are gone. The publication stands, a fact with no future, a measurement with no sequel. Every second, muons rain through the Giza Plateau and pass through the sealed space on their way into the Earth. They carry no record of what they cross. They deliver no image. They register on nothing. The pyramid stands the way it has stood for 45 centuries. The void is still inside it. 30 meters of sealed darkness above the Grand Gallery, built without a door, hidden without a record, confirmed without consequence. The stone holds. The pyramid endures. And somewhere inside it, in silence older than every language that has tried to name what it contains, the void keeps what it keeps.